If you're thinking about buying your first home in Ottawa and want to avoid some of the most common mistakes and pitfalls, this video is for you. I've had the privilege of working with several first time home buyers this year, and while they were all looking in different budgets and different locations with different backgrounds, there were some surprising similarities that came up that I want to share with you to hopefully allow you to put yourself in a better position when you're ready to move forward and buy your first home. The first thing that most of them had in common was most of them wished they had got their pre approval earlier on in the process. Most of them didn't get their pre approval until after we started working together, but most of them wished that they had had that done in advance so that when something did come up right away, they were in a position to put in an offer. I did have one person in particular who, while they were waiting to get their pre approval after they had met with me, missed out on a home that could have been a great fit for them. And with interest rates where they are right now, the pre approval is not just about finding out how much you can afford. It's also about having a good understanding of what your monthly payment and overall monthly expenses are going to look like, and deciding whether or not that number works for you and you're going to be able to carry that every month and live the kind of lifestyle that you and your family want. So the takeaway here is to get your pre-approval as early on as possible to put yourself in the best possible position to not miss out and to have a good understanding heading into the process of what your finances are going to look like after you buy that home that works for you. The second thing that most of them had in common was they didn't have a good understanding of what the closing costs were going to look like. A lot of them had Googled buying your first home and had a rough idea, like 1 to 2% of what the closing costs were going to be, but they hadn't actually factored that into their finances. In Ottawa, your main closing costs are going to be your land transfer tax, which you do get a rebate on as a first time home buyer, legal fees, and inspections. If you're looking for a condominium, you're also going to have to pay some extra legal fees to get a review of the status certificate done. Now, it's really important to have a good understanding of these expenses in advance. I had one buyer in particular who had saved up exactly 5% for his down payment. He was buying under $500,000, and as many of you probably know, you need 5% minimum to put down payment for a property like that. He had saved up exactly 5%, but unfortunately hadn't budgeted for the closing costs, and he's actually now still in the process of saving up the difference. This was only a few months ago I met with this guy. So he was really disappointed. He came to the meeting ready to start looking at homes, and I had to break the bad news to him that actually you've got to save up for the closing costs as well, otherwise you're going to be in a tight spot. So he's going to be better positioned when the time comes, but it was emotionally just kind of a difficult experience for him because he was excited to get looking. So do yourself a favor, have a good understanding of what the closing costs are in advance. Either look it up online or meet with a realtor to get a good understanding of what those are going to look like, so you have all the information you need to move forward when you do find the right place. Commonality number 3 is all of them to one degree or another had to compromise on either the size of the property or the location of the property. Almost all of the first-time homebuyers I met with this year were looking for something 2 or 3 bedroom, ideally a detached house, no condo fees, somewhere closer to downtown Ottawa, only 10 minutes away kind of thing. Unfortunately, with the budget that most first-time homebuyers have because they're not bringing equity from a previous home, that's not realistic for many people. So a lot of them had to decide early on in the process whether or not they wanted the kind of physical house that they pictured for themselves in maybe a different location, a suburb like Kanata or Orleans, Barrhaven, something like that. Or if they wanted to compromise on the sort of property, so get maybe an apartment condo, a townhouse condo, or a smaller townhouse, but be in the location that they pictured with all of the amenities and walkabilities that they were hoping for. Now, most people who end up in this situation, I find, end up choosing the space over the location. And that's because a lot of first-time homebuyers are looking to settle down, start a family. The apartment lifestyle isn't really working for them anymore. So it's a priority to get the extra space, so they will move a little bit further outside of town. But there are some people who choose to stay kind of closer into the city. Regardless of what works better for your lifestyle, I would say this is something that is really important to consider early on, so you're not in the midst of looking at homes and falling in love with places before you have to make this decision as to which of these two is a better fit for you. Basically have a good idea of which things you can compromise on and which things are absolute non-negotiables. And you might be surprised when you really take a close look at it, where you land on that. Commonality number 4, which was really interesting considering the kind of market we're in right now, was most people were still worried about multiple offers. Now, multiple offers are still a bit of a thing, especially on properties that are priced really competitively and show really well. But overall, especially as we approach the later part of the year, this is not something that is happening anymore. Most properties are sitting for a little while, And if you do end up in a multiple offer situation, it's going to be with maybe one other offer. But on the off chance that you do find yourself in a multiple offer situation, the most important thing is to be working with somebody who has a good understanding of where the market value of the property actually is. The biggest risk in a multiple offer situation is the buyer becoming emotional and getting to a place where they're just bidding as high as they can and end up overpaying for a property. That's what most people are afraid of in that situation. So make sure before you're heading into any sort of offer situation, whether it's multiple offer or not, that you have a clear understanding of where the market is at and also what other factors in your offer that you can play with to maybe make your offer more attractive than the competition, whether it's things like closing date, conditions, that sort of thing. It's not always just the highest price that wins in a multiple offer situation. Commonality number 5, and again, I think this one applied to just about every first-time home buyer I worked with this year, is they wished they had started the process a little bit earlier. Not necessarily that they had bought earlier in the year or moved in at a different time, but that they had given themselves some more lead time heading into the process. I normally tell people it's good to sit down and meet with an agent and a mortgage broker within 6 months of when you're looking to get the keys to your new place. It gives you time to ask all the right questions, make sure you have your down payment and your closing cost ducks all in a row, and go view a few properties to find out what's really important to you and what you can compromise on throughout the process. Ultimately, if you start earlier, you gain confidence throughout the process, and you end up in a situation that when the right property comes up, you're in a position to seize that opportunity and not miss out on it. So there you have it, the top 5 things that most of the homebuyers, the first-time homebuyers that I worked with, had in common this year. If you have any questions at all, if you're considering getting into the market or are just looking for information, never be shy to reach out. I hope this video was helpful. Have a fantastic rest of your day and take good care. Cheers.